Hello students, I am Sonali Kelkar from City International School and today we are going to study the new chapter Heredity and Evolution. As you know that in this chapter the related portion doesn't have evolution. So we are going to study heredity, Mendel's contribution, then laws of inheritance of traits, and then sex determination, right? So these are the four topics that we are going to cover in this chapter. Now let's start today's session. With the introduction, I want to tell you about the hereditary. We must have heard this word hereditary many times, right? Now what does this word means? So let's understand what is hereditary. Children, a certain amount of variations are produced in the sexually reproducing organism. As we all know that sexual reproduction is very important for the variation, right? And variation in fact is very important for the survival of any species, any organism, right? So this variation helps species or organisms to survive in the prevailing environmental conditions, the changing environmental conditions, right? So there are certain traits, they are passed from their parents from one generation to another generation, right? So passing on these variation from one generation to other is called hereditary. Okay, this is called hereditary. So the long-term accumulation of variation. Now these small variation which are passing on from one generation to another generation, slowly these variation keeps accumulating and then at the end we can find a new species. Altogether a new species has evolved and this is called evolution, okay, which is a very complex process and it takes millions of years. Okay, it doesn't take uh, in a very short term, but it takes many years, so it occurs over a long period of time. So in this chapter we are going to learn about variation, accumulation of variation, then the terms which are very important for you to understand the hereditary, the inheritance and the Mendel's experiment, okay, and then we are going to do the sex determination. Okay, so now what is the study of heredity is called? The study of heredity is called genetics. So the study of heredity as well as the variation together, okay, is known as genetics. The word itself is self-explanatory. That means in genetics we are going to know more about the genes, right? The genotype, the full genes of a person, okay, and the genes. Now what are genes? Okay. So we need to understand these terms slowly, right? So let's first understand what is inheritance. Now inheritance and heredity is somewhat similar, okay? The inheritance from a previous generation provides a common basic body structure because you are inherited the genes from your parents, okay? So that genes which has a coding for uh, the body, for a human body, it's just like a software which has all the coding embedded in it, right? So genes are just like a software, okay, which has codes, and these codes determine your body structure, okay, your body structure. So the basic common body design is same, but there are few changes in it for the next generation, right? So these changes are taken from one generation to another generation. They are genetically passed down from one generation to another generation, and this is termed as inherited traits. Now what are these traits? These traits are blue eye, gray eye or brown eyes, curly hair, straight hair, curly hair, straight hair, right? So these are the different type of traits. Here we can see the different example of traits black, brown and red. What are these black, brown, red? They are hair color. So hair color is a characteristic and black, brown and red are the different traits. Eye color, under the eye color is a characteristic, and black, brown and blue are the traits of eye color. Height is a characteristic and the trait is tall and short. Earlobe is a characteristic and trait is free or attached. As you can understand from this, trait is telling you about a particular uh, characteristic of a person. Okay, if I take height, so height is a characteristic, and what is a trait? Trait is the tallness and the shortness of a characteristic, okay, which define the characteristic in more detail is what is a trait. Now, what is genetics? Okay, as I've already told you, genetics is the study for transmission of body features, that is both similarities and differences from parent to offspring and the laws relating to such transmission. So once if we are doing hereditary, it is very important for us to know more about genetics, right? Now hereditary, I have already discussed the term hereditary. It is defined as the transmission of a genetically based characteristic from parent to offspring. Okay, so these terms are very important. A definition for 1 mark can be asked on this. Now, what is the variation in population? We have to know more about the variation and accumulation of the variation, okay, before we proceed to this chapter. Now, variation in population is human being, as we know, as a species share many characters or traits among themselves which identify the species Homo sapiens. So we know that there is a general characteristic of human beings. We have one nose, two eyes, two ears, two hands and two legs. So these are the basic general characteristic, or we can say a design of our body. And this design of our body, okay, this is carried from one generation to another generation, and now we are considered as a special species known as Homo sapiens. Okay, we are known as a special species known as Homo sapiens. We have if you see the ancient man, actually we came from the apes. Okay, from there you can see there is a significant difference in the body design. Okay, but now we have achieved to a level where there are less changes in the body design, right? So we are the most evolved human beings, or we are the most evolved species. In fact, these are known as, we are called as Homo sapiens. So due to the accumulation of variations from apes till the modern man, we can see there is due to the accumulation of variation, the whole species has changed. Okay, and now what do we mean by species? Species means the organism which are present in the same species, they can breed. Okay, they can breed among themselves and their progenies are fertile. Okay, progenies can still breed among themselves, right? So this is what is a species. So altogether a different species has come over and we call it Homo sapiens. But yet the various races, you can see there are different races in the Homo sapiens also, right? You can see there are features which are different in Chinese, in Negroes, in Europeans, in Indians, right? So we can see that there are variation even within the species, right? Within this species, though we can interbreed, but there are variation, there are physical variations, changes. We can make out that this person is a Chinese or he is from the eastern part of Asia. We can make out people who belongs to Africa. We can make out the people who belong to Europe. So because of these variations in the species, we can differentiate the people, right? Further, the smallest unit of population is the family, right? Family, even in the family you can make out that there are differences among the parents and even among the siblings, right? So these are the certain variations. These small differences among individuals are called variations, right? So variation means a slight difference on the basis of their common characters which occur due to the presence of, now why this variation is there? This variation is there because of the alternate form of the same genes for the single character. We are going to deal with this in detail further, right? Here you can see the original parent, and there is a little variation in the progeny of this parent over here. Here also there is a little variation in the second progeny, right? Or you can see there is a difference even in the siblings. And here uh, in the further next generation, if I take it as F1 generation, first generation, and if I take this as F2 generation, you can see the changes. Okay, these changes, the change which are there in the first generation, it has been transmitted or transferred to the second generation. Okay, so it has been inherited in the second generation. Here also you can see the second generation, the traits, the changes, the variation which was made in the first generation, this is inherited to the second generation. And above all, there is some more variation. You can see here some more variation took place in the second generation also, right? So there is accumulation of variation. Now there are the two types of variation. One is the somatic variation. The word soma means body. That means if there is any change in the body structure, right? Gametic variation, changes in the genes, in the gametes, right? Now somatic variation takes place in the body cell. It is neither inherited nor transmitted. Somatic variation, suppose because of a lot of exercise a person has made good muscles, six-pack muscles, but it doesn't mean that his child will have that six-pack muscles, right? Because that is the somatic variation. He has made certain changes in his body. Suppose a person was born with the curly hair, and she doesn't want curly hair, she wants a straight hair, so she can go to the parlor and get this hair get her hair done straightened, right? So and all these type of, see, you can see the example given over here, cutting of tails in dogs, that is a somatic variation. Then boring of pinna is a somatic variation. You won't find this variation in the next generation, right? So it is not done in the genes. Something which is made, some changes which are made in the genes, that only these changes, those changes can only be transferred from one generation to other generation, right? So that is a gametic variation, takes place in gametes or in reproductive cells. Okay, now they can be inherited, they can be transmitted. They are also called inherited trait, for example skin color, right? Europeans, okay, even their babies will be having a fair skin, and in the people staying in Africa, Negroes we can say, right, they have dark skin, so that is inherited. So because that change is there in their genes, okay, that is present in their reproductive cells. So these are gametic variations. Then accumulation of variation during reproduction. Variation occurs during reproduction whether organism multiply sexually or asexually. In asexually, the variation is very few, very less variation. So you can see that these variations are not so prominent. You cannot see those variations, right? But in sexual reproduction, variations are large. Okay, and this variation, why the variation is present in sexual variation? Because of the crossing over. Now the crossing over, suppose there is a chromosome, this chromosome is from mother and the other chromosome is coming from father, right? Coming from father. So this is what is crossing over, right? Here you can see the father, little part of the father's genes and mother's genes have crossed over. Here also they have crossed over. So okay, so this area is where they have crossed over. This is what is known as crossing over. This takes place in meiosis, right? Meiosis is a cell division which takes place in reproductive cells, right? Mitotic cell division takes place in somatic cells, right? In meiosis cell division, this is taking place is germ cell, or you can say in reproductive cells, right, where the haploid number of gametes are formed, okay, as a result of meiosis. Haploid, what is haploid? N. Now what is N in human case? Number of chromosomes, only 23, right? So haploid, and 4 haploid gametes are produced. They can be either sperm or they can be either eggs, right? So due to this crossing over which takes place in meiosis, okay, and this division takes place in germ cells, or you can say reproductive cells, which is responsible for the variation, right? That is why the parents looks different from their children. The children are not the exact copy of the parent, right? Even the siblings look different. So this is the reason, crossing over, then separation of the chromosomes, right? Chromosomes are getting separate from parents. Like initially the parent has 46 chromosome, but in the germ cells, in gametes, you will see only 23 number of chromosomes are present. So that is also responsible for the variation. And mutation, that is a sudden change in the genes, right? But sometimes the mutation is helpful, but sometimes the mutation is not at all helpful, right? Here in this picture you can see this beetle color is green in color. This beetle, okay, it is green in color, which is definitely helpful for beetle, and this mutation is really good for this beetle. Okay, so there is a sudden change, and rest of the beetles are brown in color. So this beetle can hide in bushes, and okay, it cannot become a easy prey for the predators. Okay, now importance of variation, depending upon the nature of variation, different individuals would have different kinds of advantages, right? So here we have taken this variation is very important for beetle, and the variation in polar bear, if you can see their fur are very thick, right? They are very furry. Because of this variation, they can able to survive in the drastic cold conditions, right? So this variation is really helpful for bear, right? Now for example, they have given example over here, bacteria can withstand heat will survive better in a heat waves. Okay, some bacteria can withstand heat, so they can survive in heat waves, right? So these bacteria can survive even when there is a rise of temperature in seawater. So main advantage of variation to species is that it increases the chances of survival. So why variation is so important? Because it increases the chances of survival in the changing environment, right? We know that environment doesn't remain same. Okay, so you can see there are changes in the environment, and due to certain changes in the environment, the species which can exist, which can survive due to the variation, right, will be the benefited one. Here is a little variation in human beings. Free ear lobes and attached. These are the two variants found in human population. Anyways, this free ear and attached is not going to help in the surviving. It is just a variation. That's it. Now there are certain important terms before we start the inheritance and the Mendel's law. You need to understand few terms which are very important. Okay, what is chromosome? Now chromosome, okay, what are the chromosome? They are highly condensed. I'll just change the color. They are highly condensed coil chromatin fiber, right? If we see a nucleus, right, this is a nucleus, fine, and inside the nucleus there are thread-like structure, right? This thread-like structure you will find, or you will found when the cell is in a growing state, right? The cell take birth, and then cell starts growing, and then it attains the adult stage, right? But this is the condition where the cell is in a growing state. You can see the chromatin fibers here, okay, the thread-like structure, chromatin fibers. But when the cell is ready for the division, when the cell is getting ready for the division, these chromatin fibers start coiling Okay, it starts coiling. They coil and coil and coil. They get super coiled and they form a rod-like structure called chromosome, right? Here you can see the chromosome rod-like structure. This is a chromosome, right? And these chromosomes, right, they are like this and they are attached over here, and this is called centromere. Okay, these are called centromere. These are called the arms of chromosome. They are called chromatids. What are they? They are called chromatids, right, children? Now if you uncoil this chromosome, okay, let me write this as called chromatid. It is not there in your syllabus, but it is good if you have extra information, right? So chromatin fibers, they coiled, super coiled, and they form chromosomes, right? Now what is there in the chromatin fibers, right? If you see, if you uncoil the chromatin fibers, if I uncoil the chromatin fibers, I can see there are DNA. Chromatin fiber is made up of DNA, right? So chromatin fiber is made up of DNA and chromosome is made up of chromatin fiber. So definitely in the chromosome there will be DNA structure, lots of DNA structure, right? Now what about the gene? Now genes are the functional unit of heredity, as they are made up of DNA. Now if you can see, this is a DNA string, right? This is a DNA string, and here you can see a gene. It is a part of a DNA. Gene is a part of a DNA, but this gene is responsible for a certain trait, for a certain characteristic. Okay, this is a part of a DNA. It is a special type of protein which is present on the DNA, responsible for a particular type of character. Suppose let's take height over here. Okay, so this gene is responsible for height. Okay, similarly there can be many segments. This is a segment, okay, segment of DNA, which is nothing but a special type of protein, okay, responsible for, I can say that this gene is, this is responsible for height, this is responsible for hair, that is the type of hair, this is responsible for color of eye, color of eye. Similarly, there are other genes present on the DNA, right, and which are responsible for different characteristic, right? The chromosome is made up of DNA containing many genes. So ultimately we know that the chromosomes are made up of DNA, right? And every gene comprises of the particular set of instructions for a particular function or protein coding. Speaking in usual terms, genes are responsible for heredity. So we can say that genes are responsible for heredity because they are responsible for the particular type of character, or they are responsible for the particular type of trait. So there are about, now this is the latest discovery, there are about 30,000 genes in each cell of a human body. How many? There are about 30,000 genes in each cell of human body. Then there are about 2,968 genes which is present in the biggest chromosome, right? The biggest chromosome, I'll tell you about which is the biggest chromosome, right? 2,968 genes are present, and the smallest one, that is the Y chromosome, about 231 genes are present, right? So this is all about genes. So we came to know what is a gene. It is a special type of protein. It is a part of a DNA. Okay, it is a segment of a DNA responsible for a particular type of character. Okay, so we came to know that chromosome is made up of chromatin fibers, and chromatin fibers are made up of DNA, and on DNA we have genes which is responsible for a particular type of trait. So this is what is a little story about the chromosomes, genes and DNA. Now coming to the characters and trait. As I told you before, right? So what is a character? If I say height, if I say color of eyes, if I say color of the skin, if I say the uh, shape of your fingers, right? So these are what? These are the characters. Okay, these are the characters. And the alternative form of character. Height means, what is the alternative form of height? Height, tall and short. Okay, so tall and short, these are the two alternative character of height. These are known as trait. If I am talking about color of iris, in color of iris, brown color, blue color, dark brown color, gray color, these are the different alternative form of characters. Okay, so they are known as trait. Okay, here we can understand it more deeply. Color of eye, brown or blue, brown and blue is trait. These are trait. These are the traits, and color of eye, these are the characters. Characters. Okay, children. Now hair shape, curly and straight. So curly and straight are the two alternative type of character. These are the trait. Heavy, bushy and thin. What are these? Eyebrow. So eyebrow is a character. Heavy, bushy or thin eyebrow, that is the trait. Color vision is a character. Normal or green red color blindness, that is a trait. Earlobe, free or attached. Free or attached, they are the alternative form of the character. Okay, the variety of character, that is a trait. Lips, thick lips or thin lips, these are the trait. Lips is a character. Okay, so that is what is a character and trait. Now coming to the homologous chromosome, right? Here you can see the chromosomes. This is, as A said, you can see the pair of chromosomes. There are 23 pair. This is the 22 and this is the 23rd pair, right? Till 22 pair, whatever genes, chromosomes are present, they are only responsible for the uh, these are only responsible for the body appearance. Okay, these are the body cells. So, and the 23rd chromosome here, this is responsible for the sex of a person, uh, whether the person is male or the female. Okay, so XY, because it is X and Y, so what is this? This is a genotype of male. In case of XX, that is female. We know that XX stands for female. Okay, so XY stands for male. So till 22 chromosomes, we call them autosomes, right? And the last 23rd chromosome is a reproductive chromosome. Okay, now here what do we mean by homologous chromosome? A pair of corresponding chromosomes of the same shape and size, one from each parent. Now if I take the example of the first one, so if this is coming from mother and this is coming from father, now this is a pair which is also known as homologous chromosome. Okay, it is a pair of chromosome having the same shape and size. As you can see, the size is same and the shape is also same, right? And if you see, even this is a homologous pair of chromosome. One is coming from mother, the other one is coming from father, having the same size and shape. Even the third one, this is a homologous chromosome, this is the third homologous chromosome. One is coming from the mother and other is coming from the father, right? So here we can see the different pairs of the chromosome. One is coming from mother, the other one is coming from the father. Okay, so they are coming from the each parent. Okay, so as to altogether we have 22 autosomes, chromosomes responsible for the body character, the color of the skin, hair, tall, short, all that is a body character, right? Okay, now regarding the sex, X and Y, this is the last set of the chromosome, right, which is a reproductive chromosome responsible for the sex of a person, whether she is a male or a female, or whether he is a male or female, whatever is the sex, right? So the complete set of chromosomes that constitute the entire genome of a species. This is what is entire genome. So alleles, now coming to the alleles, which is very, very important, right? We have seen that in a homologous chromosome, okay, this is a homologous pair of chromosome, right? And we have talked about the genes. That is, the genes is responsible for a particular trait which is present on the DNA. And we also know that chromosome is made up of DNA. Okay, so this is a chromosome. This is a chromosome. Okay, I'll make it as chromosome, highly coiled chromosome. Right now, in this chromosome, there is a segment. There is a segment. Okay, this DNA segment is nothing but the gene which is responsible for a one particular trait. Right, here is another chromosome. Okay, let's take this one is from mother M and this one is from father F, right? And you can see there is a two segment of genes which are present on the homologous chromosome, right? And they are present at the same part, that is the location is same. Okay, you can see the location is same. So when these genes which are responsible for the alternate form of character, suppose let's take the first, this segment is responsible for the color, flower color, right? Let's take this is responsible for the purple color, right? And this segment of gene which is responsible for the white color of flower, right? So these are called alleles. Now what are alleles? As you can see, these are the alternate form of genes. These are the alternate form of genes responsible for the alternate character. Okay, here we have taken the character, the purple flower and the white flower, and they are present on a homologous chromosome. Okay, they are present on a homologous chromosome and they have the same locus. Locus means location. Since they are present in the same locus of maternal and paternal chromosomes, these genes have the same trait. Because they are present at the same location, they have the same trait. Same trait means they are responsible for the color of flower. They are responsible for the color of flower. One is for purple, the other one is for white. So they are alternative form of genes. We call these as alleles, right? So alleles are responsible for the alternative form of genes. So they will definitely show two different traits. You can take one more example as over here. This is a gene from mother, this is gene from parent, and I'll put this segment responsible for height. Okay, this is for tall and this is for, let's take over here, we have the small t. So this these are the alleles, okay, responsible for the height, for the height present on the homologous chromosomes, okay. Similarly, there can be other set of alleles responsible for the iris, color of iris, right, present on the same location. They have to present on the same location, children. That is why they are responsible for the two alternative type of traits, right? So the alleles can be dominant or recessive. Now let us do this alleles in detail. They can be dominant and recessive. Over here, if I take the tall is the dominant and the small t, this is the short, which is a recessive. So recessive, when you have to show the recessive genes, it has to be written in a lowercase, and capital T, which is the dominant character, it has to be written in a uppercase, right? So this is a dominant. As the word suggests, dominant means it is more effective, it is more powerful, right? Dominant. And this is recessive. This is recessive genes. So here you can see the dominant always gives the phenotype its code, while the recessive alleles gives the phenotype only when it is present in a homozygous state. So phenotype, genotype, homozygous, heterozygous, that I am going to discuss in the further slide. Till now you just have to know what are alleles and what are they responsible for. Now coming to the dominant alleles, right? Coming to the dominant alleles. If you see this, these are the two homologous chromosome. One is coming from the mother, other is coming from the father, right? Father, and you can see here capital P and capital P. Okay, so they are the these are the alleles. Okay, gene location, they are located at a one particular place, right? So this capital P and this capital P, this capital P means it is responsible for this is a dominant character. This is a dominant character. A dominant allele is the strongest allele among the two form of genes present in the same loci of the maternal and paternal chromosome. Okay, so P, capital P is a dominant, this P is also a dominant. So this is a dominant allele represented by the capital P, okay, and they are present in maternal and paternal. Here this, if you get a pair of gene, this type of pair of genes where one is capital, the other one where the both genes are capital, we call it as a homozygous form of dominant allele. Homo means similar. Homo means similar. So when you find the similar type of genes, when you find the similar type of genes, okay, present in a genotype, then we call it a homozygous dominant. Why it is dominant? Because both are capital P, right? So homozygous dominant allele, right? And if I see the other one, which is here, one is the capital B, so it is a dominant. The other one is a small b, so it is a recessive allele. Dominant allele, sorry, and recessive allele. And when they come together, okay, in the progeny, when they come together from mother and the parent side, I can see it is one is the dominant, the other one is the recessive allele, right? But because they are different, the pair is, they are not same, so we call them heterozygous. We call them heterozygous. Okay, this is a heterozygous condition where one allele is a dominant, the other one is a recessive. Now coming to this, here if you see, this is a small a and small a. As I have already told you, the lower case of a letter represent the recessive character. Okay, now here both are recessive allele, but they are same, they are small case, both are small case, so I can call them homozygous. But because they are recessive, we are calling it as homozygous recessive alleles. Homozygous recessive allele, right? So homozygous means when both the genes are same. Either they can be either dominant, or they can be either recessive. Homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive, and the other one is heterozygous, where the one allele is dominant, the other one is recessive. Now coming to the recessive alleles, we have already seen the recessive allele. The recessive allele is the weaker allele amongst the two alleles of the genes. It is expressed only in case of homozygous. Expressed in a case, suppose there is a tall gene, okay, and there is a short. One gene responsible for the tall and the other gene responsible for the short, right? We know that capital T is a dominant, so definitely the progeny will show this character. That means the progeny will be tall, it won't be short, though it is having the recessive gene also, but recessive gene cannot express itself. Dominant genes will only going to express itself, right? And even in the case of homozygous dominant, because definitely here both genes are tall, so definitely the progeny will be tall. Progeny will be tall, okay, and here the progeny will also be tall. But in case of homozygous recessive condition, because there is no tall gene, there is a short genes, Okay, so definitely the progeny will be short. So the recessive genes will express itself only in a homozygous condition, only when both the genes, when the progeny is getting both the recessive genes from the parents, only in that case that recessive genes can be seen. Only in that case that character of that recessive genes can be expressed in the progeny, right? So you can go through this table, children. Now coming to the genotype and phenotype, right? The words itself is self-explanatory. Genotype means it is related to genes, right? Till now we have done capital T, small t. Now here there is one other example of tongue rolling. Okay, for tongue rolling as capital R, right? So capital R, what is capital R? This R is nothing but a dominant allele, right? Dominant allele, capital R, dominant allele. What is allele? It is a gene, alternate form of a gene. So definitely it is a genotype of a person which is present in the chromosomes, right? You cannot see the genotype. What you can see is the person. You can see organism, you can see the changes in the organism, right? So that is expressive, but genotype, it is present in the gene. Okay, so this is known as a genotype. Clear? Student, genotype, it is a set of the genes present in the cell of an organism. And what is phenotype? The observable characteristics, right? RR, it is a for rolling, a tongue roller. Okay, a person who can roll the tongue is a tongue roller. Okay, if a person has both R, capital R, both are dominant genes, that means he can roll the tongue. Okay, when he can roll the tongue, you can say that yes, the person can roll the tongue. This is the something which you can observe, that is called phenotype, right? But you don't know what is present in the gene of that person. Capital R and small r, even this person can roll the tongue, but you can see the difference in the genes. Okay, one is the homozygous dominant, the other one is heterozygous dominant. Okay, there is a changes in the genes, but they both can roll the tongue. And the third one, the third character is small r and small r, both are recessive. This is homozygous recessive condition. Here a person cannot roll tongue, he is a non-roller, right? So the three situations pertaining to any pair of genes are these are the example of the three situations pertaining to any kind of genes, right? So genes can be in three different type of pair. They can be either homozygous dominant, they can be heterozygous dominant, or they can be homozygous recessive. So these are the three different type of arrangement of genes. Okay, now what are gametes? We know that sperms and eggs, each of which only one genes out of the pair. Okay, this is what is a gametes. They have only one genes, right, out of the pair. So that is what is a gametes. Okay, the sperms will have one set of male genes, and egg will have one set of female genes. Okay, now monohybrid. Now because the Mandel has done the monohybrid cross, so you should know what is monohybrid. Okay, now mono means single. Okay, monohybrid cross is defined as the breeding experiment conducted between parents which differ in one specific trait. Okay, suppose you take the trait tall and short. Okay, I have taken one trait, only one trait, that is tall and short. So this is called a monohybrid cross. Okay, I have taken the one trait from each parent, and then I have made the crossing over of the gametes, and this is what known as monohybrid cross. When I take two characters, okay, suppose in case of a pea plant, if I take yellow and round, if I take the two characters yellow and round, so definitely these are the two characters I am taking in the gametes, and I am doing the cross breed of that. Okay, then definitely this is known as dihybrid cross, because I am taking two characters of parents, two contrasting characters of parents, and I am crossing each other. Okay, so that this is known as dihybrid cross. Now coming to the rules of inheritance of characters. Okay, so there are certain rules for the inheritance of characters. First of all, the characters are transferred through genes present in the DNA molecules in the chromosomes present in the nucleus of the cell. We know that chromosomes are present in the nucleus, and the chromosome are made up of DNA, right? So and these are responsible for the inheritance of character, right? And the inheritance of the character is due to the fact that both the father and the mother contributes equal amount of genetic material to the child. If we see the chromosomes in human beings, there is a 23 pairs, okay, or 46 chromosomes, right? 46 chromosome. Okay, even if you see the chromosomes in a different organisms, such as if you see the chromosome in lion is 38, right? In tiger also 38. Let's take in insects 1000. Some insects have 1000 number of chromosomes, right? Then in dogs 78 chromosomes. If you see these numbers, what can you find which is similar? These all are even numbers. Why they are even numbers? Because they have to be divided into two equal halves. Okay, 46 should be divided into 23 and 23. Okay, so it means that both parents, that is father and mother, should contribute equal amount of genetic material. Okay, so this is the rule of inheritance of characters. Okay, so for each trait there are two factors. That means now Mendel was not knowing about the genes. Genes discovery was made much later. Mendel used the term factors. So the factor is nothing but genes, right? So what he wants to tell that for each trait there should be two genes. Let's say for height there should be two genes. One is the tall, other one is the short. Let's say for the purple color of flower, capital P, small p. Let's say for the round and wrinkle, capital R, small r. Okay, so these are the different traits taken from the two different parents, coming from the two different parents, okay, and their genetic materials is equal in amount. So Gregor John Mendel, he is the father of genetics, conducted different experiment with garden P. Pisum sativum is the scientific name, and determine the rules for the inheritance of the trait that we are going to do. Gregor Mendel started studying inheritance in peas, and he performed series of experiment with pea plants for 7 long years. Okay, he had grown almost 30,000 pea plants, children, and he did all the experiment with these many pea plants. And then he came to the conclusion, and then he formed its own laws of different laws based on inheritance. We call them laws of inheritance. He kept proper count of individual exhibiting a particular trait in each generation, and Mendel with his experiment found out the principles based on which he could guess how characters are inherited or passed to the offspring, how the character are passed from parents to offspring. These principle he found out their different rules, right? And many rules of heredity was established, often termed as laws of Mendelian inheritance, right? He is known as the father of genetics due to his significant contribution to establish the basic principle in genetics. So he took green peas, okay, and why he took green peas? Because green peas have a contrast characteristic. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there are 7 contrast characteristic in green pea. So that is why he took green pea. One more thing, the lifespan of green pea is short, so he can see many generation of green peas, right? And he can come to the conclusions also, and that is why he to choose green pea plant. Gregor Mendel was the first scientist to make a systematic study of pattern of inheritance which evolved the transfer of characteristic from parents to progeny. Progeny means offspring. Okay, so from parent to offspring, how the different characters are transferred. Okay, so that study he made. So he did a lot of crossbreeding of plants, pea plant. Okay, monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross, I have already given you a brief introduction of monohybrid cross and dihybrid cross, right? And we are going to study more in detail in the next session, right? So Mendel chose pea plant for studying inheritance because pea plant had a number of clear-cut differences. Clear-cut differences, that means it has contrast characteristic, okay, which were easy to tell apart. For a tall and dwarf pea plant, some pea plants produce round yellow seeds while other produce wrinkled green seeds. Okay, so on the basis of his experiment, he found that few characteristics are dominant and few are recessive. Okay, another reason for choosing pea plant was that they were self-pollinating. Yes, they are self-pollinating. That is why he chose pea plant. So the pure and the impure crossbreed can be done with the pea plants. Okay, also Mendel chose pea plant because many generation of pea plants can be produced in a comparatively short time span, and their study is much simpler than those of animals, right? Because if we take let's take a age of a dog at 14 years, right? So if you have to study the different progenies, if you have to study, let's take the 7 generations, so you should live for so many years to study that generation. So that is not feasible, right? So because this pea plant have a short lifespan, so he can see different generation and he can conclude the result also. So this is all about today's chapter, children. Practice today's topic. Thank you.